these so-called ethical vegans are actually one of the most unethical people in the world. So this vegan movement is full of hypocrites. Veganism is the peak of hypocrisy. So just consider, what is the base philosophy of these ethical vegans, so-called ethical vegans? It is anti-speciesism. Speciesism means discriminating animals, saying that okay, animals are inferior, I am a human, I am superior. So discriminating and oppressing animals, saying that okay, animal suffering doesn't matter. So these anti-species, these ethical vegans, they say that okay, a dog is equal to a chicken, is equal to a pig, is equal to a human, so don't harm them. I actually agree for the most part. So whenever a victim is suffering, their suffering is what matters. Who the victim is doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter whether an animal is injured, whether a chicken is injured or a human is injured, they are going to feel the same amount of pain, they are going to feel the same amount of suffering. So there is really no reason to discriminate and say that okay, chicken suffering doesn't matter, goat suffering doesn't matter, pig suffering doesn't matter. But I would actually like to extend the statement and say that a dog is equal to a pig, is equal to a human, is equal to a zebra, is equal to a lion, is equal to a frog, is equal to a snake. Any sentient being suffering matters. Any sentient being suffering deserves to be stopped. It's as simple as that. So the topic of wildlife suffering, here is where these so-called ethical vegans start behaving like a bunch of bigots. They start discriminating. Animals suffer more in nature than in farms and slaughterhouses. For your information, worst kinds of suffering exists in the wild. It is very common in the wild for animals to abandon their own children because conditions are so harsh and wounded children slow them down. This happens very commonly. Is another thing that is very common in nature. Natural disasters, diseases. So predation, one animal is forced to kill another animal. So they don't really have a choice in the matter. So either the prey dies or the predator dies. So you cannot really blame the prey or the predator because it's the design itself, the design of the nature itself that forces these organisms to pointlessly kill each other. Natural death is often more painful and more slow than whatever you can see in slaughterhouses. Oftentimes. So worst amount of suffering exists in nature. Nobody can deny that. So here is where these so-called ethical vegans start to discriminate. So for example, so there is this practice in dairy farms. So these dairy farmers, they don't find any use in keeping the male calves because male calves don't produce milk and are not profitable. So most of these male calves are discarded, right? So they are led to starve. So these vegans, they are furious. How can they do this? The dairy farms need to be closed. This practice needs to be stopped. And I agree with all that. But let's just compare, right? So there is a male calf starving in a dairy farm and there is a deer starving in a forest, right? So what is the difference between the two? So you are anti-species, so you obviously don't care what species is suffering, right? So what is the difference between this male calf starving in a dairy farm and this deer starving in a forest? I will tell you what is the similarity. Both of them are suffering equally. Both of them are victims of starvation. Both of them want to escape their suffering. And you know what these people say? Okay, this suffering in dairy farm is human made, so we have to stop it. So this suffering in forest is nature made. We shouldn't interfere with nature. But it doesn't make difference to the fucking victims. So can the deer be happy? I guess I'll happily starve to death. Because nobody, at least I am not in a dairy farm. No human is abusing me. So I'll happily starve. Have you heard of any humanist say that, okay, I am an anti-racist, racism is wrong because racism is human made, and all those black people starving in Africa deserve to die because I'll let them die because that is nature made. If you claim that animals are equal to humans, then you treat them like that first. You treat them as if they are humans. So even if your pathetic social justice movement manages to succeed and actually get animals liberated, that wouldn't solve animal suffering at all. According to UNFAO statistics, 77% of agricultural land is used for animal agriculture, and that animal agriculture only feeds 17% of the human's calorific needs. So all of this land, if it is clear, all of this 77% of agricultural land is cleared, it will be subject to afforestation and reforestation. Just imagine if 1 square kilometer of a farm is cleared and reforested, how many millions of insects, lizards, frogs, birds and other wild animals can move in. Just imagine, right? So now scale it up to 77% of all of agricultural land, right? And all of these animals are going to suffer in nature. So animals don't care. So a zebra doesn't care if a human hunts the zebra or the lion hunts the zebra. All they care about, they are going to be hunted down and they are going to die. They are going to suffer and they are going to die. A fish doesn't care if the fish gets trapped in human nets or it gets trapped in a whale's mouth. All they want is to not suffer. They want to escape suffering. So the only way to actually help animals is by causing extinction, is by giving them non-existence. So be it wild animals, be it farmed animals, be it urban animals, all sentient beings going extinct is the only way to stop suffering. Because the existence we live in does not allow animals to exist without suffering. There is no way. They will obviously be subject to predation, they will obviously be subject to diseases, they will obviously be subject to slow natural death, harsh weathers, continuous search for food and water, oppression, abuse. This can never end. So even if you get animals their rights, they will still be subject to abuse. A country like India, women have rights, but are they safe? No, they are still being subject to worse crime. So even after you liberate all the animals, they will still be subject to abuse and oppression. You cannot change that. And I want you to think about one more thing. Let's say that, okay, you liberated all the animals and the whole world is vegan. Are you satisfied with this world right now? Still you didn't solve suffering, right? Will you be satisfied with this world? No. So we have to accept the facts. We have to do what is logical for the animals, what is logically best for the animals. We shouldn't do what is emotionally best for us, what is making us feel good emotionally. So when you preach this so-called veganism, when you preach this ethics, you preach some things but you don't follow it. When somebody tells you, okay, plants are also living beings, you are killing them. You say that, okay, but plants don't suffer, animals do, plants don't have nervous system, they don't suffer. So there is a difference. We should focus on eradicating suffering. Suffering matters. But when it comes to extinction, you say that, wild animal suffering doesn't matter. You preach anti-speciesism. You say that all animals are equal. All suffering is equal. But when it comes to the suffering in nature, you say that it's natural. When somebody say that eating meat is natural, lions eat meat, you say that, you tell them that, what is natural does not mean that it is ethical. The same thing I am telling you. Just because this suffering is natural doesn't mean it shouldn't be stopped. What does the word nature even mean? And finally, you say that, you tell the people, the commoners, that look at everything from the victim's point of view. Now I am telling you that, look at everything from the victim's point of view. For the victims, they don't care who causes their suffering. They don't care how they look. The only thing they care about is the suffering. And the only logical way to help them is to work for extinction, work for extinctionism, join the extinctionist movement. That is the only solution for the animals.